Joining us here, the top of hour number 2, is a man with all of the information involving the association. He tweeted out before we went on the air about Ben Simmons is returning to Game 4 of this Nets-Celtics series, that the Nets need to win that Game 3, man, to avoid Game 4 being Simmons trying to avoid a sweep in that Game 4. And he also was the one who broke the story that Jay Wright was contemplating retirement, and sure enough, Jay Wright retired after 21 years at the helm of Villanova basketball. Shams Charania of The Athletic and more right here on The Rich Eisen Show. How you doing, Shams?
Rich, I'm good. Great joining you. I appreciate you having me on.
You got it. All right, let's start with the Jay Wright story first. What led him to make this decision? What do you have for me on that?
Rich, when I heard that Jay Wright was retiring, thinking very, very strongly about retiring on Tuesday night, I was stunned. I was shocked. I couldn't believe it because, I didn't even know until I Googled it that he was 60 years old. I mean, the guy obviously looks younger, but also just he's an icon. He's a legend in coaching in general, obviously a Naismith Hall of Famer. But the more I dug, the more I did my research, it was clear that family time and being at home and being with his wife, Patty, while they're still young at the age of 60, Jay Wright I think was very, very important. I was told by people close to him that was the significant reason why he ended up retiring in other people's mind early, prematurely, however you want to call it. But at the age of 60, he wanted to really have this next phase of his life with his family. And there's no NBA coming down for Jay Wright. There's no, after it came out last night, I was getting texts from people around the league that, he was going to the Lakers or the Kings or the Nets, the Knicks. And there's nothing in the NBA for Jay Wright. He feels like he's done everything in the college ranks. Obviously, he was part of the Olympic national team, and this is a guy that's obviously a legend in the space. And so the more you thought about it, the more you saw that it did make sense. But of course, it is very, it was definitely shocking. And obviously for Jay Wright, he's starting the next phase of his career.
Well, I mean, you kind of beat me to the punch of my follow-up question, Shams, because, obviously you don't usually traffic in the news of breaking news from the college basketball ranks, and the fact that it crossed your radar screen made everyone, certainly in this room, when we were texting each other, Lakers, this is it. I mean, and one way to enjoy your dotage with your wife while you're still young is to watch the Pacific sunset, with your big-time contract that the Bus family would probably bestow you with. There's no shot of that at all?
No. Jay Wright, his retirement was for his coaching career, and he's going to spend family time. Now, I could see him going and transitioning into doing, on-air work for either one of the networks. But as of right now, his full mindset is on his family. The Lakers will have an expansive search. I do believe there was interest to a degree in Jay Wright from the Lakers, but he is not going to entertain the NBA from everything I've been told. And the Lakers search will have to move on to other candidates. Nick Nurse is a significant name as far as when you look at guys that they would want to go get established coaches out there in the marketplace. Nick Nurse crosses every T. Former championship coach, can get the most out of that group in Toronto, and you would hope be able to challenge you in LA. The only problem is Nick Nurse has 2 years left on his deal, and any type of getting a guy like Nick Nurse would have to mean that you're either doing a trade or Nick Nurse is somehow able to get out of his deal. So it's not as straightforward as getting one of these assistant coaches around the league or a coach right now that isn't employed. So I do think the Lakers will take their time. I think it'll be, one of the more slower coaching searches right now, but it's a slow period. When you look at the two job openings right now in the Lakers and the Kings, I think both teams will be methodical in their approach.
Shams Charania here, lead NBA writer, senior NBA writer for The Athletic and Stadium here on The Rich Eisen Show. What is happening in the Lakers facility right now? Decision-making, roster building, coaching search. Give me the whole soup to nuts, best you can tell me right now.
I believe what's going on now is game planning for the offseason, right? And their first order of business is figuring out who the head coach of this roster will be. And so I think when you look at Rob Pelinka, their general manager. You look at Kurt Rambis, who's an advisor there. Those will be two of the names that, of course, will be part of the decision-making process, along with, Jeannie Buss in ownership and the rest of that group. And that's their first order of business. Roster-wise, of course, the Russell Westbrook situation looms as well this offseason. What happens with him? He has a $47 million player option. The sides could ultimately end up having a discussion in terms of which trade possibility might make sense. Is there a buyout possibility that might make sense? I think that's, I think that still has some work to be done as far as getting to that point. But overall, there's no question the first order of business is trying to figure out which direction you want to go with your head coach. Do you want to go with more of a veteran? Do you want to go with, do you want to go with an assistant coach? Are you willing to pay top dollar, the $8, $9, $10 million range? When I talk to prospective coaching candidates in the space, it's like, the Lakers going to be in that mode of paying the top dollar and being a significant player in the space. And I mean, these are all questions internally they're going to have to figure out, in terms of what direction they want to go in.
Well, I mean, there's a couple of things you just said I want to follow up on. The first thing is, like, any coach, like you mentioned Nick Nurse moments ago, the current Raptors head coach with 2 years left on his contract. For him to go down a road, let's just say this, like just for him in specific, going down a road, wouldn't he want to know before taking the job how much longer LeBron plans to stay there? And whether Westbrook is something he's going to have to, if for the lack of a better phrase, deal with? Wouldn't that have to be decided before a coach takes such a leap of faith to try and get out of a contract? And then forget about the dollars and cents, which I'll get to in a second. Just give me your thoughts on that issue.
Those questions will have to be a part of the discussion for sure. And I think that is something that will come up no matter who the coaching candidate is. What's the future of a LeBron James? What's the future of Russell Westbrook, Anthony Davis? LeBron James has an extension opportunity coming up in August, and I expect that to be more of a discussion for the summer. But with 1 year left on his deal, there's not going to be a pressure point where the Lakers are going to apply on him. It's going to be a discussion that's going to go into July and August. So until then, I don't think there's going to be much clarity on that. But for sure, that the futures of these significant players is going to be a part of the discussion.
And then why don't the Lakers pay all that money? Right? I mean, they're we just saw what they're worth from, what was that? Forbes came out and gave that list. Sportico or something. Yeah. So we're there's no cap on what you pay the coach. Well, why are the Lakers suddenly known as an organization that might not pay for the coach that they can, the best one that they can get? Like what gives on that front?
I think that is more just, coaching prospective candidates having that question, right? And I think when you think of the Knicks and you think of the Lakers, you obviously think of there's no cap.
Right.
But, when you think of a Nick Nurse, I'm told he's making $8 million a year on his contract in Toronto. And when you're thinking about a coach that's going to leave a prospective position, you would want, obviously more than $8 million.
Yes.
So, again, like that's a significant salary. That would put Nick Nurse at one of the most – he's already one of the upper echelon, paid coaches, but you might have to get to that $9, $10, $11 million type of mark for him to leave that situation. So I think these are just questions that are asked when you look at the prospective candidates that are potentially out there.
Shams Charania here on the Rich Eisen Show, the Athletic and Stadium. So in our final moments together, your Ben Simmons reporting back at Game 4. If he can play Game 4, why not a Game 3, right? I mean, they're down 0-2. Like this is it. They made this trade for him. We're seeing Harden, even though he fouled out on a team that's one step away from being in the second round already, isn't like why Game 4, not Game 3? What do you got for me on that?
I think just allowing him to have even more opportunity to get practice time in, and this is a guy who hasn't played in almost a year, June 2021, and so for him to be thrown out there, of course, you want to make sure he's as rolling on all cylinders as possible, and he's done a couple days of full court scrimmaging this week. I've heard he's come out well from both. He's feeling good, and so as long as that progress continues, tomorrow the Nets are expected to practice. The assumption is that that'll be another opportunity for Ben Simmons to have a scrimmage day, and you have 3 scrimmages under your belt, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. use the weekend to continue to ramp up, get treatment, and make your debut on Monday. And I think that is the expectation around the Nets, the expectation around Ben Simmons, that he will be out there on Monday. The question is, again, does he come off the bench? Is there a minutes limit? I think what the Warriors are doing now with Steph Curry, bringing him back from an injury, where Steph Curry has been, vocal about that he is going to, be dealing with some discomfort. He's playing through that, but he wants to play in the playoffs. So he's playing on a minutes restriction coming off the bench. I would expect, that could be a model for the Nets if they want to save Ben Simmons for the final, 4 to 6 minutes of each quarter, have him come off the bench. So I think these are all conversations I expect to take place over the next few days. The Nets, of course, hope that they are, at least down 2-1 in that series before a Ben Simmons return on Monday.
All right, then let's quick hit or give whatever information you can on some other crucial injury news. Certainly with series at 1 game apiece. So Luka's availability. What can you tell me about that with the Mavericks?
There's an expectation that he's going to be back either tonight in Game 3 or Saturday in Game 4. Tonight, I expect him to be a game-time decision. It's really just going to come down to how his calf feels and his conversations with the medical group. If they feel like he could benefit from another 2 days in terms of today and tomorrow before Saturday, he'll sit. But if they feel like he's ready to go, if he gets a sign-off from the medical group, he will play tonight. But like Luka Doncic said yesterday, he's not going to be coming back at 100%. He knows that he just needs to avoid the risk of re-injury, and I think that's going to be part of the conversation. But there is optimism he'll be back here as the series shifts to Utah.
What's the scoop on Devin Booker for the Suns?
With a mild hamstring strain, you're usually looking at 7 to 10 days. That puts him out definitely through games 3 and 4, possibly 5. The back end of that type of a timetable puts you out in jeopardy of the series. So that's really the type of timeline that you're looking at for a mild hamstring strain. I would expect Devin Booker to continue to get treatment over the rest of the weekend into early next week and hopefully have a better sense of when he can target a return.
So then they'll have to maybe dispatch with the Pelicans without Booker, and that would be, one would assume, a much more troublesome task if Zion Williamson returns. What's the deal with him? Do you think the Pelicans, what better time to unwrap him than in front of the home folks with an opportunity to go up 2-1 on the Suns? What do you think?
Yes, Zion's been doing more and more on the court, doing controlled 5-on-5. He's been getting out there on the floor. We've seen the highlights of him dunking, but there's no expectation of him returning in this series and really in this playoffs. I think they want to make sure he is 100% healthy before a return. So clearly he just has not been fully cleared to resume full basketball as far as being in a game environment, playing in a game, and there's not really an expectation that will come. But to me, it is positive that he's out there, he's doing more. But I think it is a goal of obviously the Pelicans, of that organization, to make sure when he does come back to the floor, given what's happened the last year, the foot fracture in the summer, everyone thought he'd be ready for game 1 of the season. He wasn't. The multiple setbacks that he's endured. They want to make sure when they bring him back, he is 100% healthy.
So I'll just put a fine point on it here by asking this question. You can only use 2 adjectives. Here I am forcing a guy who writes to use. You can only use 2 adjectives, Shams, okay? This Zion situation, injury situation, is either cautious or weird. What is it? Cautious or weird? You can only use one of those 2 words to describe it.
I would probably lean toward cautious. I'm sure. Listen, but I mean, it could be both, right? Like it could be both. I think it could be weird because when you look at it, the expectation was he was going to play game 1 of the regular season. That did not happen. He had multiple setbacks, and he's finally out there on the floor now.
Yeah, he looks great, man. He looks great.
I think if it was up to Zion, and I think his stepdad came out and said it publicly recently. If it was up to Zion, he would be out there playing. But health and clearance and making sure that you have a consistent level of play in terms of 5-on-5 and real contact work before you get out there, making sure your conditioning is 100%. Those are all factors that will determine when and where he comes back.
Thanks for the time. Really appreciate it. Congrats on those 2 scoops. You certainly got us with that Jay Wright thing. That was something else last night, man. Much appreciated.
Rich, I appreciate you. Thank you.
Right back at you. A must follow on social media. A must follow. That's Shams Charania of The Athletic. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.